welcome back to another video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video and comment if you have any feedback. Actually going to talk about mental health today and dealing with the food addiction that I commonly dealt with and that I still am battling. It's something that I have to face head on every single day when it comes to my addiction to food and overcoming it and actually transferring that addiction over to something that is healthy. I actually have come across 4 things that help in regards to the food addiction, and I want to talk about that today. When we talk about food addiction, we talk about the mental health side of food addiction and how mental health is so important when it comes to our weight loss journey. I've said many times that, if our body is losing weight, but our mind can't comprehend the weight that we're losing, oftentimes our mind is going to be so used to a particular weight that it's going to try to get that old body back. That's why yo-yo dieting is so popular, why you hear about it so much, is because physically our bodies change because of weight loss, but our mind doesn't change. So we end up just going back to the old us constantly. So I do believe that food addiction is something that we have to deal with. I myself, in regards to my food addiction, I dealt with stress. I dealt with the emotions of life in a way that I allowed food to kind of be an outlet for me. Whenever I had stressful situations happen at work, whenever I had a stressful issue, I would always use an outlet for food. I know that emotions ran high or emotions were an issue. And again, I went to food as kind of a coping mechanism for me to deal with that. And it was something to where I almost felt blind in my food addiction, to where I almost felt like it was a gray space, that I forgot where I was and forgot what was around me and just immediately ended up binging or going to a particular restaurant and having all this food, and then all of a sudden waking up from this kind of binge moment and realizing, man, this is a rabbit hole of regret that I'm in. And I think rabbit hole of regret is probably the best terminology to describe it, because this rabbit hole of regret is daunting and it's overwhelming. It feels impossible to overcome because we get into these binge moments. We get into these moments where we give in to our cheat foods or cheat meals, or let stress or let emotions get the best of us, and we end up eating what we didn't plan on eating. And we just end up being back to where we were and kind of going through that cycle of being unhealthy. So, the weight loss journey and the mental health side go hand in hand. I would dare say that the mental health side of things isn't probably talked about as much as the actual successes that you get during the weight loss journey. A lot of us talk about the number on the scale, or we talk about the size of clothes that we fit into, or the experiences that we have. But the mental health side isn't talked about as much, and that's probably something that needs to be dealt with above all. Because again, if our mind is in a certain place and our body loses or moves from that space, our mind is going to work to get us back to where we were. So dealing with the mental side of things is going to help with us long term. So I do think that there are good principles, good practices that we can put in place to help deal with our food addiction, help deal with our ability to use food as a coping mechanism for stress or for emotions. And I want to talk about those 4 and see if those 4 can help. I think the very first thing to focus on is writing down trigger foods. Trigger foods are items that will trigger you into something else. So here's a great example. If you know that you struggle with potato chips and that is your bread and butter, potato chips, you can binge on a lot of potato chips. Writing down what a trigger food is, like potato chips, and taking it off of your list of things that you buy and put in the house. If you've got a cupboard that you commonly go to binge on, writing stuff down that is your typical trigger food and utilizing that trigger food list to avoid that stuff being in the house. If it's not in the house, it's going to be a lot harder for you to go to those things. And oftentimes, if we're trying to stay away from potato chips, we'll utilize something else to kind of satisfy that craving, but then we end up getting back to it. So if we say, you know what, I'm going to take a break from potato chips, then it's taking all chips in all its forms out of the house so that you're not tempted to do that. But it's also at the same time writing down good trigger foods for you, writing down the trigger foods that veer you off course, but writing down things that will replace those trigger foods that allow you to get through. Good example for myself, a trigger food was potato chips for me, and a good kind of segue from that is pork rinds or almonds for me. I kind of get that crunch still, but at the same time I'm getting high protein and I'm keeping it low carb, which is kind of supporting the diet that I'm on. So writing down trigger foods, knowing what those trigger foods are, and planning on not putting those in the house or putting yourself in a position where those aren't easily accessible is going to allow you to deal with that addiction and deal with that emotional kind of grab or pull towards it. Because if it's not available to it, then you've got to consider a more healthy option like, say, pork rinds or almonds, or you've got to deal with the ability to not have that or have something that's going to be better for you. So I think writing down trigger foods is a good first step in kind of dealing with that food addiction. You know, something that I was a serial offender at was overdoing it when it came to fast food places. And here's a typical morning for me prior to me losing 317 pounds. My prior journey was waking up in the morning, getting ready for work, and my work was about an hour away. About 20 minutes into my journey, I would stop at a Starbucks. I would get 2 banana breads, I would get a cake pop, and I would get a venti caramel frappuccino, extra caramel. Now, I would have that in my lap and be ready to go, but then I would stop actually right next door because I felt like I didn't have enough food. So I immediately went next door and I would get at McDonald's 2 sausage McGriddles, 2 hash browns, 2 burritos, and another caramel frappuccino-ish thing because I was always already getting into my caramel frappuccino that I wanted to make sure I had it for the 40 minutes that I had left for work. And so immediately in the morning, I'm having thousands of calories based on fast food, and I'm just ordering what comes to mind or what looks good on the menu. A good way to deal with the food addiction and things that stray you off course and take you down that regret of a rabbit hole is making a list of common places that you go by. Whatever fast food restaurants that you love and that you go to, it's first working on getting rid of those fast food places, because fast food at the end of the day is very highly processed. It can lead to some unhealthy decisions, but it's also making a list of what is healthy at those places. You know, at all these places, you can turn it into a high protein meal. So good example, the folks over at In-N-Out, shout out to In-N-Out, love you guys, California and the surrounding states who have In-N-Out know what I'm talking about. It's the best burger place in the world, my personal opinion. But with the folks over at In-N-Out, they've got a double-double that's phenomenal. You can actually make that double-double a protein style and save yourself a lot of calories because of the bun. In fact, you can even do something called the Flying Dutchman, which is just the meat and the cheese, and you're now getting all protein, no carbs, no sugar, and you're completely getting protein in your diet instead of a high carb issue, say with bread or anything like that. So you are planning ahead for your potential of going to fast food restaurants. You go to McDonald's, you know, me, myself, I went to McDonald's before and loaded up on burritos, hash browns, and all kinds of McGriddles. And now they'll actually sell you, or they'll give you the grilled chicken actual patty itself, just by itself in a little tin. So if I want to focus on just getting chicken, high protein, low carb, there I'll go and get that. If I'm going to have a breakfast sandwich and I'm on the way and I'm on the go, I'll tell them with no bread and no sauce, anything, just the meat and the cheese, focusing on something that is going to be a little bit healthier than me loading myself up with the bread or a lot of the processed items. I'm going to save myself, and mind you, a lot of you are probably saying, well, that stuff is still processed. A lot of that stuff is still processed. But if you're going to position yourself for success when it comes to food addiction, it's making a list of fast food restaurants that you commonly go to and actually finding an opportunity to find a healthy option at those places so that you can save yourself when it comes to going to those places in an emotional or in a stressful moment. It's easy to get stressed out, easy to get emotional and use food as an outlet for it. Well, make a list and prepare yourself that if you're going to go somewhere, make it not as bad if you're going to go eat somewhere, with making a list of healthy food options at your local fast food places. So that's definitely a good option I would recommend all the way. I think the third tip that I would give is making a list of healthy foods that you enjoy and healthy foods that you can surround yourself with at your house, but also stuff that you can find at the store if you have a break for lunch. Having a list of things that you like, having a list of things that you enjoy, and utilizing those things in a list form to actually support what your grocery budget, what your grocery trip is going to look like, is going to help you be successful. You know, a lot of times we find ourselves binging or eating stuff that we shouldn't because it's available to us. If you're making a list of healthy options and not making those binge items available to you, you're going to save yourself a lot of trouble when it comes down to that again, rabbit hole of regret for eating or doing something that you didn't want to do. So I would recommend making a healthy list of things that you like. I know me myself, when I go to Costco, there are these protein bars that are high protein, low carb, low sugar, and those protein bars are instrumental when it comes to something that I have in between breakfast and lunch, and between lunch and dinner. Those are high protein, low carb, and they support my healthy regimen. They support the journey that I'm on, and it actually keeps me intact instead of surrounding myself with a candy bar or all of a sudden diving into a bag of potato chips. I've got things in the house that I've planned on putting on my healthy grocery list, and I've got those in the house so I can immediately go to them. So make a list prior to going to the grocery store of healthy options that are going to help you in your weight loss journey. I think the last thing to do is make a pros and cons list. With the pro list, put things down that your health journey is going to help. If you have goals or dreams or things that you want to do, what does that pro list look like for you to achieve those successes? I want to ride a roller coaster. I want to fit in this particular outfit. I want to go to the park and not be exhausted with my kids. Write down a pro list. Write down a list of things that you are working and fighting for. But also at the same time, write down a list of cons and have that actively in your mind. Oh, well, I don't want to feel that rabbit hole of regrets. I don't want to feel that that pain of not fitting into this particular thing. I don't want to go to the park and not be able to play with my kids. I don't want to go to a specialty store to find clothes. I don't want to be limited. I want to be adventurous, and I can't be adventurous if I'm limited by my weight, and I don't like that feeling after I binge eat. Writing down those lists of cons is going to be instrumental because you will actually visualize and put something on paper of what it looks like on the other side of making that bad decision. Having a list, having a running list of that bad decision is going to help. Having a list of the pros is going to help. You can see the benefits of you doing these things. Oftentimes when people set a goal for themselves and they set that goal so they set that goal in such a way that it's something they really want to achieve, and they make it either an icon or something that they write down. When they achieve it, it feels so satisfying. It feels so good. So write down those pros, write down those cons. It's going to be important to be successful in your weight loss journey. Those 4 things I think have helped me and in my particular journey, and I'm hoping that they help you. And I hope that the mental health side of things, when it comes to our weight loss journey, is talked about more and it's addressed more. When it comes to our weight loss, physically, we're going to change. Physically, if you have the weight loss surgery, if you don't have the weight loss surgery, if you're on the keto, the Whole30, whatever diet you're on, you're going to see changes physically. But if you don't see changes mentally, if you don't work on things mentally, physically, things are going to get back to where they were, because again, your mind is used to a particular position. Just because your body changes physically doesn't mean your mind's going to change in how it deals and copes with food. So eventually your mind is going to get that old body back because it knows how to process like the old you. So work on the mental health side. Make it a focal point. Make it something that you focus on. Recapping the 4 things is making a pros and cons list, developing a healthy list at the grocery store that you can get and surround yourself with. Fast food restaurants, finding the healthy options if you're going to be going to fast food restaurants and that's common for you. And also eliminating trigger foods from the house, but also replacing those trigger foods with a more healthy option in the house, so that if you are craving something, you're putting yourself in a better position versus, say, potato chips, and incorporating almonds into your diet instead of, getting down on big bag of potato chips, having some pork rinds that are a little bit higher in protein, a little bit higher in fiber and fat, but that higher fiber and fat with the pork rinds is going to keep you satiated, and you're going to feel that full feeling a little bit longer, and putting that into practice where you're setting yourself up for success. A lot of stuff that I mentioned today was about making lists, about writing that stuff down, is because we, I think, as a generation are a lot more visual. We're on social media. We see physical representations things now on TV. Instagram is now very big with sharing just a picture and a caption, and we're very visual people. We're very visual experience folks, and part of that visual experience is writing stuff down, seeing what you can do to overcome your addiction, seeing what you can do to overcome the mental health side of your food intake, and addressing it head on. I do want to make mention that it also is important when it comes to an addiction is to develop a plan to talk to somebody about it and actually opening up that dialogue. Now, if it's going to be with a counselor or with a therapist, that's going to be important, because having that conversation and working that stuff out on why we deal with food the way we do, whether it's through stress, whether it's through emotions, I do recommend having that conversation with somebody, because that is going to be a part of overcoming that addiction. You know, when it comes to food addiction, it's actually the same dopamine that's released when it comes to a drug addiction. You know, when a drug addict is addicted to drugs, there's a release of a certain kind of dopamine that addiction is supported with. Well, that same addiction point is coming from food. So when we say that food being an addiction is similar to other addictions out there, it's true. At the end of the day, food can be and is an addiction. And by dealing with it, with our mental health, dealing it with the 4 kind of recommendations that I had today, and even dealing with it with talking to a professional, might help us overcome it and beat it at the end of the day. And that is the goal, is overcoming mental health and being healthy for the rest of our lives, so we can take care of our heart, we can take care of our body, and we can do things that we've always wanted to do, like go on roller coasters, play with our kids, fit in the clothes that we want to fit, go to places and sit down and not feel that we're busting out of the seat, doing stuff that we've always wanted to do to take care of ourselves and to take care of those around us. So hopefully this video helped. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment your thoughts. I'd love for you to share this with anybody that maybe is dealing with the mental health side of losing weight and the food addiction, and hoping this helps them as well. Hope you guys have a great rest of the day, and I'll see you on the next one.